Brad Davies. Who the hell's Brad Davies and why do we care?
A local independent insurance agent. Been doing this now for over 10 years. We started an agency in the Destin area in 2014, and ever since I've been trying to grow and help as many people as we can. Originally from Central Florida, graduated from the University of Florida, where I met my wife and kind of fell into this in a way. It's a family business, so ended up starting the independent with her side, and here we are today.
Love it. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Let's just assume I'm an idiot because it's not much of an assumption. What is a family-owned insurance company versus others?
So you really have two schools of thought. You've got an independent agency, which is what we are, where we represent a multitude of carriers. So we have contracts with 30 plus homeowners carriers, multiple auto carriers. We do
like Allstate, State Farm.
Allstate and State Farm are traditionally considered more what you call a captive agency. So State Farm writes State Farm. They've got their line of products. They also have access to Citizens on the homeowner side, and then they can do some takeouts through there. But and then Allstate is almost a hybrid now. They were originally a captive where they sold Allstate. They got into the Citizens thing, but then they've also kind of branched out a little bit, and they've gotten certain contracts with some independent carriers. They got to be, to my understanding, I'm not Allstate agent, but they've got to be a little more vetted and approved by Allstate to do that. But they do have some access to some independent markets, so they're kind of in the middle, kind of a hybrid.
So an independent can go to Geico, can go to
we can go to Frontline, Tower Hill, Olympus. Those are the big three that we see in our area. We can go to Progressive.
Why go to different agencies?
The idea is to try to find the best mix. So you're trying to find the best rate for the best coverage, or the best coverage for the best rate.
Right.
We provide a ton of different options. You know, every client's unique, so some people aren't as coverage sense. They'd rather take a little bit more on themselves. We can tailor that product. Whereas some people are more rate sensitive. So we're trying to find the lowest rate. Some people want the higher coverages. We just like to have some options. In Florida, we've seen, especially on the homeowner side of things, that you need those. I mean, Florida has, I think, almost 40, somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 homeowners carriers now in the state. So
there's 40 carriers for homeowners insurance?
Plus Citizens, plus others.
How come I keep hearing there's nobody that will write insurance then?
They're here. A lot of them have restricted their guidelines such that they aren't writing. You know, they aren't aggressively attacking business right now. They all kind of took a step back with the litigation piece that we can get into, and really analyze their books, tried to really survive. You know, they were taking record losses, and you know, I can hit you with some examples.
So hold on a second. So let's talk about that for a minute. Brad, what is the state of play for the insurance industry now? All right, here's an example. I'm reading right from Wall Street Journal here. Insurers rake in profits as customers pay soaring premiums. I hear it from the real estate side all the time. Just, insurance companies, sons of guns, all this stuff. They're making a fortune. They're charging me a fortune. I can't make my numbers work. All this stuff. Insurance, nightmare, right? Here's another one. Wall Street Journal. Buying home and auto insurance is becoming impossible. Allstate. Giant threatened to last fall to stop renewing auto insurance, pulling out of California, Florida. According to folks, it's a mess out there. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with some of that. It's definitely a tough market. It's what we call a hard market right now. Finding options can be very difficult. I would disagree in the fact that on the profit side, carriers have been painted into a corner, really. They've been put in a situation where the damage was done. The litigation piece just took them basically to the cleaners. When you have, I'll kind of do an example here. So you've got a roof damage claim. You get either an AOB, assignment of benefits, or private adjuster coming in, whatever it may be. That roofer's saying, you know, insurance company says, yes, there's damage. We'll pay you the $15,000 for your shingle roof. What people don't understand is that when a claim goes the attorney route, goes in that lawsuit situation, it's not that the carrier said they're not going to pay. They're arguing over how much. So the way the laws were written a few years ago, there was no real skin in the game for these attorneys. They would come in, just throw as many lawsuits out there as they could, see what stuck, because if they lost, there was no harm. There was a one-way attorney provision that basically said, if we go to court and we win by $1, $2, whatever it is, the attorneys
Get fees.
the attorneys can get their fees paid by the insurance company, and that's how they get paid. But then they could also inflate their fees and hit them with a 4 times multiplier on top of that. The example that I used, $900,000 or $30,000 claim, went to court, settled 2 years later for $32,000. It's called inflation. Cost the insurance company $900,000 on with the.
And the insurance company passes that on. They don't eat that, right?
They have to survive. So when my argument is, you have they're saying carriers are making record profits. They've got to make up the difference, because we had over 200,000 of these lawsuits in the state of Florida alone in a 2.5-year period. I'll hit you with a few more numbers on that first. So just to give you just how bad it had gotten. The number 2 state in that same time period was Texas, and they had 900.
And we're at 200,000?
Yes, that's a high number. So clearly there's an issue. There's a loophole that needed to be fixed. But
it's not fixed.
It is now.
It is.
So that's the piece that everybody talks about with the legislation that was passed or signed by DeSantis. The piece of legislation that was signed or put into law or passed in December of, get my year right here, 2022.
Okay.
Technically it didn't go into effect for a few more months, but that piece of legislation stopped the one-way attorney fee. So it was historic, honestly, reform at that time to get that kind of legislation finally passed.
Okay.
Other states have seen some similar instances like this. Again, Texas years ago was up to 30,000 in a year. They had some historic reform, so we were just late to the party.
Okay.
The damage had already been done.
But that's rear view mirror. Are prices going down in the future?
The hope is that we do see some adjustment in the next couple of years. It's still, carriers are making profit now to recover. So like I said, the damage was done. They've got to get back to where they were so they can help pay your claims. When you've got, my argument is, if you have carriers making all this money, how did 3 of them make a profit one year? Homeowners carriers. How did, I think we lost 8, went under, somewhere in that range. And then that's not to consider all the other ones that had to do some financial restructuring or some jockeying to stay afloat. Okay. So when you're talking about almost 30 to 40% of your homeowners carriers in an issue, a financial burden where they've got to do something or they will go under, I would have a hard time thinking that their business, there can't be that many business models that are that bad.
No.
So
let me ask you this then, because I know our audience are homeowners, condo owners, investors. Costs matter to them like they do everybody. Well, first of all, can you even get insurance? That's an issue right now. Can I even get insurance regardless of the price?
So I actually kind of have some, my personal opinion on this. I'm trying to read a little bit between the lines of what I'm starting to see. First of the year, we've actually started to see some movement back the other way. So yes, I mean, there's more options now than there were 6 months ago for sure. And now I say this, it's a very slow process. These carriers are going to tiptoe back in.
Yeah.
It's a standard free market economy, right? So more competition, that's what's going to breed the rate decline, hopefully. What we're being told is by a lot of these carriers, it's probably going to take at least another 12 to 18 months. But there's a lot of other outside factors, right? I mean, you still got the inflation, you still got costs, you still got hurricane season, you still got reinsurance costs. I didn't even get into that part of it.
Yeah.
You still have all these outside factors, so there's still a lot up in the air. But if things continue the way they did last year was a good year. For
no major storms.
No major. Well, we had the one, and I hate saying it, but
down by Tampa or something?
One that hit right in the bend.
Yeah. Okay.
If we were going to take a major storm,
that's a good spot.
I don't wish it on anybody. I mean, as a Floridian, we don't ever wish it for anybody, and we're always there. We got their backs. But for the amount of claims and the low population density, they took one for the team essentially. Let's put it that way. That could have been catastrophic. As bad as our industry was, if it had hit an area of like say Miami or where Lee County and Collier County, where Ian came on again. I mean, where the population density is.
Nightmare.
Yeah.
Are there more insurance companies? Did I read that? There's more companies coming to Florida?
Yeah, and so that's that piece. We are seeing a few new companies take advantage of what is now a good position because the legislation is passed. So if you're a new entrant into it right now, as long as things stay, those other outside factors stay okay, it is kind of an advantageous time. If these carriers can come back into play, spread this risk out. Again, I get back to that free market view. As you get more competition and these carriers start to open back up, they start competing again.
Yeah.
Once they start competing, that's when you
price
and I
comes down, service goes up, all that stuff.
Yes.
Love it.
So
Love it.
we're starting to, fractions, right? Fractions. But what we've been going through the last 3 years was historic. So any kind of relief is
good.
Is
Welcome.
relief, yeah.
So let me ask you this then. That's houses, condos. Is it different? I mean, when that condo fell down in Sunnyside, that's a problem, right?
It is, and that's almost a little bit of a subsect. Obviously, these are these other outside forces that I keep referring to, but that has been a big issue on the loss assessment side, and we've seen a lot of that where these condos have had. Again, legislatively, they passed this inspection process.
Yeah.
All of these condos have to get it done by this year, from what I understand.
We just did a video on that.
Yep. Yeah. So depending on what that inspection finds is where you're going to see these assessments.
Yeah.
And they can be large. And
Huge,
so
in some
that's
cases.
going to impact this condo market as far as the real estate side for a while until those assessments are paid and everything, gets back to where it should be, right, based on the legislation.
I love it. Because we have a lot of clients, owners of condos, investment condos, and the HOA increases are massive.
Yeah. So it goes back to this perfect storm of everything that we talked about with the auto, all of this. There's all these other outside forces that create this snowball effect.
Yeah.
And you get we didn't really touch on yet the cost of commercial property insurance went last year. I believe I don't think I had a single commercial property renewal that wasn't 100% rate increase across the board. And there's no other market to go to. There's nobody writing it. That's again getting into the reinsurance side of things that we haven't touched on. But again, you have all of these factors. So you get record high rates. Associations got to pass that on.
Yeah.
You get the legislation passed, so they got to get these inspections. You got to get these upgrades to the building. You have to get all these things go into it.
All in the heart of inflation and elevated costs and
building
labor,
materials, labor, all of. So again, you're seeing that all these pieces fit together where we've just had this perfect storm of this.
So here's the big question then. It won't keep going. It has to slow down. Is that fair to say?
I believe so. I hope so. It seems to have slowed. The commercial piece probably lagged a little bit behind from what we saw in the personal lines. Last year was a big jump.
Okay.
In Florida, at least on the coast, a lot of that is brokered or surplus lines markets. They operate a little differently. They don't have to get rates and things passed and changes passed. So they can fluctuate quicker.
Okay.
Insurance companies, even with these large rate adjustments, all those rate adjustments have to be approved by the state of Florida. So the state of Florida is looking at your book saying, prove to us that you need this. So again, going back to this, if you're making profit, they're not going to approve that stuff. In the surplus lines market is a little different where they can basically, they look at the market and say, here's what we're going to offer you.
Okay. Well, I don't want to get too in the weeds.
Yeah.
It seems like we ramped up fairly quick. Things got expensive, COVID, inflation, lawsuits, everything kind of culminated, and here we are, extraordinarily expensive. But things have to slow, and it appears
it appears that they're slowing a little bit. I don't think that we're done by any means. I think the rate,
but it can't triple.
Theoretically, yes. Again, you have these outside factors that are out of all of our control as taxpayers, as residents of Florida. But I call myself cautiously optimistic that we do seem to be turning the tide a little bit. Again, that's my personal opinion. I feel like I'm reading between the lines of what I've heard from reps, from carriers, from these things that I can't say put my finger on one thing, but
bottom line, you got to have insurance.
Bottom line, you got to have it. If you got a mortgage, you got to have it. There's definitely things again that we can do. Everyone's different. I don't. We get people trying to make drastic changes. There's a lot of in between room in some of this stuff.
So folks should call you if they have a question.
Absolutely, call. Even if I don't have a policy, I'm happy to talk somebody through it.
We'll put that in the notes to how to get a hold of Brad for sure. That's part one. There's a lot to this, obviously. We're going to talk next week with part 2, where we answer specific questions that homeowners have. All right? So tune in for that.